So, good morning, everybody. Let's start this track, the legal track. Here, my name is Roberto Cavaliere from the Tech Transfer Digital here at Neutech Park, and I'm going to moderate this session. We have started with 20 minutes of delays. Unfortunately, the first speaker was not able to join us, and therefore, let's start with the first speaker of this session, Mr. Stavras from Intel, and he will speak about software bills of materials and software package data exchange. Just a reminder, 15 minutes of presentation plus 5 minutes for Q&A.
Thank you. Hello, hello. Yay. Hi, thanks for coming, and thanks SFNCon for having me again here. I'm Alexis Stavras. As you can tell by my name, I'm Greek. I'm working in Munich at a large company that you've probably heard of called Intel. Intel is known as a hardware company. I'm doing software. Intel will be known as a software company. We'll try to move it, but it's, you cannot move a ship. I'm going to be talking about a topic which is very dear in my heart. I'm working for software bill of materials for many years. More than 10 years I've been involved in such effort. So I'm going to be explaining the whole idea of software bill of materials and then present what's happening in the last days or months, let's say, or something like that. So as you probably know, this is not very convenient. As you probably know, software nowadays is very complex, right? Whoever tells you that I wrote some software and it's all mine, yeah, you can ignore it. You do not believe it. There is no single entity that writes their own software anymore. Always the software is a combination of different things, libraries coming from elsewhere, mostly open source, right? A nice percentage that we used to say, let's say 5 to 10 years ago, it was 80-20, right? 80% is not yours, right? You only write the 20% of your software. Because, there's no point in you reinventing everything and write your own, libraries and sort routines and stuff like that. You always use somebody else. Nowadays, it's even, worse. Or better, less work for you. It's 90-10 or something like that, right? So whenever someone writes software, they only focus on a very small part of the whole end result, right? So we have lots of things inside our software. Right. The software bill of material is the idea that we want to have, like in a building, we want to have exactly what will go inside the building, right? The bill of materials is a record of, think of it like a table of contents, what's inside the piece of software, right? So we have different libraries, we have modules, some of them may be open source, most of them. There might be some proprietary software in there. Some of them are free available, some of them are paid. Some of them you can get it for, download it from the internet for free. Some of them are not, and you have to pay, and it's commercial software that you're getting. It doesn't matter what kind of software it is, right? We just want to have a table of contents of what's inside or software, because when you get it, it's nice to know what's inside. Who should be using this wonderful software bill of materials? You can skip the all words and think everyone, right? Basically, any organization who publishes software should declare what's inside that, right, for better support of your customer, and you know exactly what's inside what you're shipping. And if you have this table, right, when we're talking about this table, right, we're talking about the different views of people who interact with this table, right? So some of them produce this table. If I'm producing the software, I'm producing also the bill of materials and the list of components that are in there, right? Others just want to consume it, and if you check it, maybe you check it for legal reasons, maybe you check it for contract reasons. You told me that you're going to give me software that includes this, and yeah, I'm checking, and stuff like that. There are a couple of chairs around, yeah. If you can, yeah, squeeze towards the middle, yeah. That will be. And there are empty seats in front. Right. So, right. So, yeah, everyone should be using an SBOM, so why have it an SBOM, right? So when we started this, initiative, when I got involved in this initiative, it was one of the things was about legal compliance, right? So you want to check, hey, I'm using this component under, sorry. I'm using these components under this license, and each open source license, as you know, has license obligations, and you have to know that you are fulfilling the obligations, right? So in order to know that you're fulfilling the obligations, you have to know the obligations. And in order to know the obligations, you have to know, okay, what am I using there? What's included in this software, right? So every component has a license, and you have some obligations. Maybe it's open source, maybe it's not, it doesn't matter. It still have obligations there, right? So you need to comply with all obligations of all the components, and in order to do that, you have to have the list, right? It's straightforward, it's not easy, but yeah. And there are other, besides the legal compliance and the licensing part, right, there are other interests when you know the list of software, for example, for export or for security. And in the last couple of years, security became a very large thing, right? You've heard about lots of issues in cybersecurity incidents, and in the North Wind pipeline, in public infrastructure issues, in lots of other things where there is software and you include a component, let's say, for example, log4j, and oh wow, there is a vulnerability in log4j, so you have to know if the software that you're running includes this, because you want to fix it and you want to replace and update the library. In order to know, when vulnerabilities are published, right? You say, okay, there is a vulnerability in log4j. The first question is, okay, what of the things that I'm running in my enterprise include this, and I have to get a new version and update it. If you don't have a bill of materials, this information is not available to you, right? So, yeah, lots of acronyms there about US federal security and European security organizations that got very interested in software bill of materials in the last couple of years, to the point where we have the US president in the White House. They signed an executive order which says that basically every software that is delivered to the US federal government has to have a software bill of materials from next year. And as you can imagine, the industry is not ready for all of this. Yeah, how are we going to do it? So yeah, security somehow became very much important and is driving the whole drive now towards adoption of software bill of materials being delivered with every software. Right. European Commission will also seem to be moving towards the same mandating that software being sold to governments or to European organizations should be accompanied by a bill of materials. So most of the people, do not know the software that is running, right? I'm sure you've seen this XKCD strip. You have all this wonderful modern infrastructure, and a very crucial part is an open source library that somebody in Nebraska is maintaining without being paid, and we all rely on that, right? OpenSSL was an example a few years ago. Log4j was Christmas, 2 Christmas ago. Yeah, we see zlib was a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, we all use this software, and yeah, we all rely on that. So we definitely have the need for a bill of materials, and think of the bigger materials again like it's a table, right? It's a list of software components. So you say, I'm using zlib, I'm using this, it's under this license, this version, and this is where I got it from, right? Or I'm doing GCC, and you can say, you have name, license, version, where you got it from, or you can put other information. I did not modify that, or other stuff. Think of it just a table. So how do you, and so out of all the information that you can put, this is the minimum bill of materials that US Department of Commerce said that you have to have the name and component and version, stuff like that, obvious stuff. I'm running way too late. So, sorry I'm speaking very fast. This is a huge topic, and I love to speak about it. So, how do we do this? Right, how do we deliver this information? You can create a Word document and put a table in there and have all the information. Or you can create a spreadsheet with lots of columns and lots of information. Again, it's the same information. Or you can create a text file with a very long thing, right? So you see this one has 400. This is 117 pages. The other is 400 rows. Software is complex, right? So instead of having all these different formats, lots of people in the industry came together. We started 10 years ago, and we created this standard, which is, we call it SPDX, Software Package Data Exchange. It's an ISO standard right now, and it specifies exactly how we structure this information, right? So we also create, in the SPDX group, we also create the license list, right? And the license list is the list of common open source licenses, right? We're now having around 500 of them, right? And we keep the name and a short identifier for each one of them. And so you can put, you can refer to a license just by saying MIT, and everyone knows what it is, right? Because usually the license is just a text, and if you refer it to a single identifier, it's much easier to understand and process it, right? And you can have expressions if you have more than a single license. And you can actually put it inside your source file, right? You can put a comment like that, SPDX license identifier Apache, and people will know that your file, your source, is licensed under Apache. And that makes it easy for automatic processing and stuff like that. So, going back to SPDX, we have defined the structure of this SPDX document that we're saying, that we don't take any decisions about that. We only describe what's inside a piece of software, right? And this is a typical example in one of the formats that we support, which is text. And as you can see, it has basic information, who created and when, and it has, a list if you want to list all the file names and comments and license about that, right? I won't bore you in the details of all the spec, but we have something about the document in front, and then we have embedded information in packages, in file, or in snippets inside files, and we have license information and all this wonderful stuff. And we support lots of different, we call it serialization, but think of it different formats. You can get a YAML, a JSON, XML, RDF, whatever you want. Yeah, it's all equivalent with that, right? That was SPDX2. We're working hard in SPDX3, a new version, which is a major thing, and we have the idea of splitting the core and the profile between them, and profiles is specific for security or for licensing and stuff like that. And there are lots of tools which produce and consume this stuff, and I won't go into details. They're open source, they're proprietary tools, they can generate, they can process, whatever. And the most important thing is that we are an open group, and please come and participate. right? We have different teams, we have different groups with different focus, and yeah, you can find all the information there. Phew. Sorry, it was too fast.
Thanks a lot. Are there any questions from the audience? Maybe we have couple minutes.
Slower, come on. Yeah, okay, questions?
Please. Microphone, otherwise online.
I'm interested in the reasons behind the coming 3.0. Basically, the shortcomings of SPDX 2.2.
Oh, okay. Why? Well, we always want a better version. So 2.2, SPDX 2 was this thing, and it was a little monolithic, right? So because we started again with focus on licensing, right, we wanted to have this information, which, as you can see, involves licensing more and stuff like that. And then we started, okay, we want to put security there, and we want to put export information in there, and we want to put build and provenance. There are many different things that you can list in there. So the whole idea is that you can have different profiles, right? And we have different groups, because there might be a case, a use case, where I want a bill of materials, but I don't care about license information. I care about security more, or I want AI and what data was used to produce, right? So version 3 does the big change. Instead of having one thing that is called SPDX, it's split into profiles, right? And there is the licensing profile, the build profile, and stuff like that. So the information is compartmentalized, and you can choose which one you work. Because, yeah, otherwise, yeah, we do it. Yeah. It's the second system effect.
Any other questions? I have one, but
No.
are there here mandatory optional fields? How is
Oh, yeah,
this?
sure, everything. Well,
Okay. No, just because I know other standards and
no, okay,
typical
so,
issue.
for example,
Yeah.
some of these are mandatory, right? Going back to the definition of the minimum, these, okay, some of these are mandatory, right? So you have to know who created it. You cannot say, I found it somewhere and I don't know, because they are the one who signed it, and when it was created, right? Other things are, about licensing is completely, if you want it, you can put it, but if you not, you don't put it. Or checksums of files, yeah, it's another thing. So, yeah, everything is, pretty flexible, right?
And they can imagine there are also validation tools that check if.
Yeah, sure, yeah, of course. All the tools, there are tools that generate, and there are tools that check, and there are tools that merge, and there are tools that compare, and yeah, whatever. There are too many tools.
Okay, so thanks a lot, and we start again in 2 minutes with the next speakers.
1 minute 30. Yeah.
Ah, finita poi 5 minuti? speakers, two old friends of the SFS crew, Carlo Piana and Alberto Pianon. Yocto, go to force building environment for IoT. Please, the floor is yours.
The title is not exactly like that, but anyway. Hi. Yes, this tool, this speech is about Yocto, and we are lawyers. My name is Carlo Piana, and my friend Alberto Pianon. We are of Array. You see, I have this big T-shirt with Oniro. Oniro is a project we are a member of, and we are also producing some software for, and we are dealing with Yocto. So we come from we are skin in the game, and we are speaking of personal experience. Yocto, for those who don't know, there's a booth out there for you to be more informed, is a project to build a platform for IoT and embedded devices based on Yocto, so for low-spec devices, mainly based on Linux or Zephyr as a platform. We are lawyers, so this is not a technical, but there are technical speech, but there are a lot of technical elements that we are to be discussing. First thing we want to say, we speak of headache, but this is not something that is at all bashing on Yocto. Actually, we do love Yocto. So it's a very great platform. It's a nice platform. It works marvelous. It does incredible things. Everybody in the industry is either using it or about to use it. So, and this is why we are very keen on having it right, not just from a technical point of view, but also from our problem, which is having everything legally fine. So, Yocto is agile, is flexible, powerful, and enables you to create almost from thin air a complete distribution for embedded devices, which is a great achievement. But you know what elephant in the room means is something which is very obvious, very incumbent, but people, for some strange reason, don't speak about it. And when we raised the issues that we're going to discuss very shortly, everybody say, but nobody has told this was a problem at all. Why? Because people are solving the problem probably without speaking out, because nobody has the courage to say, oh, there's a small problem, which is, from our point of view, is big. From the point of view of Yocto, is small. But anyway, in very short terms, and trying to avoid legal jargon, the scenario, the background of this comes from one big element, that a fact. Yocto misses is no package manager. So it's a feature, it's a great thing, probably because it allows a great flexibility, it allows picking software from whatever sources, but this is a problem from our point of view. It's not bad or good, it's a fact, and we are describing it. So from this power that you are given by Yocto, you have very little control over upstream code provenance, meaning exactly making sure you are absolutely correct in identifying each and every package, even every file, even every patches, where they come from. And this is, from a legal standpoint and from a security point, a problem. Our goal is to make sure that Yocto is, as it's made for, industry production ready. So, and this means that it's not just ready from a technical point of view for producing good software. It's already there, and it's been there for years now. But it's not there from a legal standpoint. And by this, we mean not just a basic level of compliance. What we want to achieve here, in order to it to be production ready from a legal standpoint, It's all the things that we have discussed last year, that Alexios has also discussed. So having, knowing the provenance, having the ability to do a SBOM, a software bill of material, using all this, using these standards which are in the industry now, the SPDX, of course, OpenChain, which is the standard for the overall organization, reuse from Free Software Foundation, but this must be done entirely, or the bulk of it must be possible in a very automated way. So by using and searching and finding information right from the start, using whatever piece of information which should be available without discarding any of this. Is this possible? Yes, but there is a lot of handwork, a lot of things that must be done by hand. What we want to cover, the last mile, as I said, having controls of what is the source, the source code that we are using, where it comes from, this is complicated. And by this, we don't just mean overall source code. We mean having all the patches listed, all the individual artifacts identified by a checksum at file level. This is very important for security problem, in order to see, in order to prevent, for instance, supply chain attacks or supply chain hijacks, and these must be identified for each component. And we also want to preserve and to treat automatically the relationship between different elements. Of course, the licensing information from Yocto is not authoritative. There is a lot of work to be done, but this is not the task for Yocto. This is something we are taking care through means that we are describing in a minute. But one of the problems that we have to deal with, again, it's a feature, again, it's a fact. In order to do what we need to do, so a complete software composition analysis, that is, what components are there, what the relation between components are, dependency and so forth, you need to build a, not having a package manager, you need to make a, to build the software. So from the build, you know actually what is downloaded, what is stored, and what is compiled, and what goes into image, roughly. So this is information that we want to preserve and to know. So it's very important that you do it right, and you do, and any time you change a little bit in the recipes of Yocto, you can have very substantial changes, and you have everything is solved. Oh, there are a big chunk of software we need to analyze back again. So this is something that needs to be taken care of. And the main goal, the overarching goal that we are, is never to reinvent the wheel. So if the information is there, to be able to use, to reuse, and possibly to share onto others. So this ends my part of the speech. I hand over to my colleague, Alberto, that I say what the problem are, what the solution, and what the upside of it is going to be.
So, thank you, Carlo. So what could be achieved, the sky is the limit, actually, also budget is, but we are plenty of resources in our project, and also we have also trying to grow a community around it. So basically, this is, yeah. So basically, we are building a compliance toolchain focused on Yocto projects in partnership with Neutech Park. So the development of the toolchain is carried out by both Neutech Park developers and by us. And we are also trying to upstream not only some pieces of code, but mainly some kind of objectives, some aims, some goals to the Yocto project. The thing is that we are, to do things in an automated way, as Carlos said before, we come up with the idea of using graph databases not only to represent data, but also to, for instance, to do automatic licensing compatibility checks. So instead of writing complex code, we try to map licensing compatibilities through graph queries. And we are willing to put everything together. So software composition analysis, dependency analysis, CVE checking on the fly. And the most important thing was about not avoiding reinventing the wheel, Carlo was talking about before. There is a lot of compliance work already done out there by trusted communities. Our main reference is the Debian community, but there is also the Fedora community, other communities that already reviewed a lot of packages, and there is no point in reinventing the wheel and doing the same work every time. But the precondition to reuse the work that is out there and in turn to share our work with others is to review the same thing. So that is the reason why we will want to focus on the real upstream packages. The problem that you have with Yocto is that, if you have a package manager, it's like when you're hungry, you go to a supermarket, you buy off-the-shelf products, pre-packaged food, and you eat it. And that's kind of standard. With Yocto, it's different. You get recipes. You need to take the ingredients from whatever source, but you can change the recipes. You can have different books of recipes, maybe doing changes on top of other recipes. And so it's kind of a mess. And the thing that Yocto is missing is tracking the whole workflow from upstream sources, the upstream ingredients that you use, from down to the work tier where Yocto mixes up everything, down to the final firmware image. So the work that we are trying to do, and we have a proof of concept we'll be presenting at Yocto Summit in the end of this month, is, this is kind of, I don't know if it's visible, but the concept is having for each file the whole path from the upstream source, at file level, and down to the Yocto work tier, and down to the final image. So in this way, we can track every file, where not only the original source file came from, but also the patches, because in Yocto you can combine multiple sources, multiple patches, so you can override many things. And so we can conclude not only the actual license of the final binary file that is found in the binary image, but also do some compatibility checks, some supply chain checks. And this is, we have a proof of concept we are working on. And this is the main idea we are working on. And the thing that we are trying to upstream to the Yocto project is that we need to implement in Yocto-based classes a way to track with checksums the path that each source file follows from upstream to the binary image. And that's basically it. And we are available in the next matchmaking session if anyone is interested in knowing more. And I don't know if there is a little room for questions.
1 minute.
1 minute. So very quick questions, please.
Okay. Wait, the microphone, sorry.
Okay, you had it coming. Concluding the license of a file will require some kind of manual work if you're scanning it. So I assume you have that in a database somewhere.
Yeah, the point is that we have that, but we want to have that at upstream level. So basically, we have a team working on Fossology, and they work on upstream packages. But if the same upstream package is found in Debian, we have already a review of that because Debian has a copyright file with license information at file level, and we already know that community reviewed that package also from technical standpoint. So if we find a match, we just reuse the information. But that requires that you spot the real upstream source, not the mix that Yocto creates in the work there.
And for this, having the checksum, the complete SHA-1 is important because that is the identifier. So if for by any chance this is as the same file name, but a different, one bit different, you need to spot it. And if we can share this information, we can point uniquely, not to a file, but to that precise artifact down to the last bit. And this is what we want to do, because we want to share reliable information, not just because we have done the right work, but we can match and link it together to the upstream.
I think you can continue your technical discussion. Thanks a lot for the presentation. And yeah, I think that also the next speaker is not available, and we start again at 12:40 with the next speaker. Thanks. Welcome again. Next speaker, Paulo Pinto, Head of Data at Track Screening, a local company here in Neutech Park. Topic, real-life data anonymization. Please, you have to talk at the microphone. Thanks.
Thanks. Thanks and welcome. Checking instrumentation. No. Sorry, a little bit of help with how do I scroll?
You have to go.
Okay. Yeah. So, thanks and welcome. Happy to see you. My name is Paolo Pinto. I work for Track Screening, which is a company in Noi. And we would like to talk this time about data anonymization, which is one of the topics which a company dealing with data like us, because we make data-based advertising outdoor on tracks. We need also to deal with anonymization in this and in other projects, and this is something I will talk about today. Now, warning, I'm an engineer. Of course, I cooperate with lawyers because in data science, you need to have a legal eye and also a technical eye. They both intermix. I'm not trying to steal any lawyer's work. I believe in cooperation in this. But my suggestion is have a good privacy expert lawyer, because going live with any data science projects, especially when they are sensitive, like in the case of, of health and medicines. But as you will see, you can really have anonymization and privacy topics on almost every kind of projects. Now, we used to think that problems with privacy and so on started with GDPR. Absolutely not true. There has been a gradual increase in regulation, but they are older than the internet. So it's not true that once it was the Far West and we could do whatever we wanted. It started with just saying you cannot steal other people's data. It was as simple as that. But a lot of limitation came. The last news is that China is joining the club. I mean, a place where they are following you with cameras in the middle of the street. Now they have a privacy law. But there is something to be said about those privacy laws. First, they're necessary. Because without privacy laws, you could have even some suspected and some unsuspected impacts on your life. You could have for example, people reading your emails. You could be refused by a bank or at work without knowing why. They could access your data and not even tell you. And something maybe a little bit less evident is that they could make services for you so good and so fantastic and so at the right price that you spend all your money with the company, because they could imagine they know exactly your credit, exactly how much you earn, exactly your psychology. You live just for giving the perfect company, but you would live just to give them money. You would not even explore other options. So we need privacy laws. But early privacy laws said that criminals cannot steal your data, and also they say that government must be calmed down and not just take everything they can. After they started blocking what private companies would do. And in the while, the government power was expanding, while increasing limits were put on what private persons can do. Also, decreasing limits were put on what government can do. 20 years ago, it was 30 years ago, okay, it was impossible to think that you were on a no-fly list and you did not even know it. And for the first time, I make the digital ID, and I had to put my fingerprints there, like a criminal, and the government has all this information. And now, if there is a shooting near you or something happens, in the USA, the police will just take all the data of all the people who were near, and then see if someone of them can be suspected. It's 1984 back again, really. And is it a coincidence that in China, after all the arrests on tycoon and economic collapse following the fact that we have they're cracking down private business to make the government more powerful, is it strange that just now they're having a privacy law limiting companies? Now, let's talk about the situation we are in. Basically, GDPR asks you to take the data for the minimum possible time. This means that you need to throw away your data or heavily damage them after a certain time. Imagine what happens to time series. You want to know what your customer did in the last 10 years, very legitimate question, you really cannot. So you have to work around this artificial scarcity of data caused by GDPR. Some things you can conserve, for example, the first time you met this person in business, very good indicator. It will distinguish him from the other. And also, since they say you must anonymize or aggregate the data, my suggestion, Hartley, is do both. Because statistically, it's possible to use this kind of aggregated and anonymized data together to have quite good inferences. Not as good as if you really did not add the original data, but much better than having just one. Remember that anonymized data are damaged data. Your anonymized data will never be as good as the original, so try to conserve as much information as you can. The approach with old data to conserve both anonymized, and we will see that there are degrees in anonymization, and aggregated data can help you a lot. So we have an opinion, which is the document. It's older than GDPR, but it's the best we have at the moment. Those are guidelines, and they tell you what you must do to anonymize data. The problem is that you follow them completely, you destroy your data. You must know how to use this document. This document shows you perfect anonymization, and it says at the start that the objective is not to infer any information. You could also burn the data with a torch then. But this is, let's say, an upper limit, and you must know where in the scale you must stop. So it shows you, it's a very well-written document showing you all the techniques, know where you must stop, because otherwise you can just destroy your data. So this is because there is a fundamental misunderstanding in the business about what the objective is. Why we have in this kind of problems? It all started historically with an USA Massachusetts governor just fainting in public, and then a very clever researcher using publicly available health data to track down the governor, find out his diagnosis, and sending it to him. Why? Because the thinking at the moment was, do I publish name and surname of this person? No? Okay. Anonymized data. This is what we call now pseudo-anonymization. Absolutely not enough. What happened is that they crossed data, and she was able to find the diagnosis, terrible privacy breach. But she was the first to do this, and then the problem started because people became obsessed. Actually, it should not have been happened. Further research years later showed that it was just a very lucky circumstance. There was a probability of re-identifying the governor, but it was not sure. There was a lot of mitigating circumstances, but the problem is that the laws are based on the re-identification, not on the fact that it was a lucky shot. And the same happens with other very, very famous cases. For example, in Netflix, the Netflix case, they found movie ratings in 2 different databases. Okay, big deal. No, but the problem is that the laws are based on the probability of something happening and not on the risk. The fact is that GDPR is based on the risk. Risk is not just the probability of something happening. It's probability multiplied by the harm you do. There is a very high probability that in the next day I will drink some water. What is the harm? And if you have this kind of mindset, you can navigate GDPR without getting desperate. Because if you focus just on the probability of re-identification happening, you will never do anything. Probability and harm. Of course, assess harm, but this is a topic completely different. Economic risk, just don't think that everyone is after your data. Illegal data are worth very, very, very little. And here are some numbers, $1, $15. But of course, unless they are data about who you are cheating with, and then it becomes a little bit different. But don't think that just because a list of emails or surnames were stolen, it's gold, it's millions. Simply not true. So there is not even this incredibly high probability of attack. Anonymization, what you do, why I say anonymization destroys the data? Because basically you group the values or you cancel them. You just don't have a part of the information, or you switch them. A person who was an engineer now is a lawyer, and vice versa, or you just alter them. I was, 31 in one database, but now they say I am 40 or 39. The problem is you can understand, you lose precision, you lose value. The more you do this, the worse the data can. Synthetic data are seen at the next frontier. It means I don't give you the data, I just give you a new data, which are the, let's say, the equivalent of the original data. Very nice, very difficult mathematically. Possible? Yes, it is possible. You accept, of course, some reduction, but you need buckets of time and possibly not too many data. But synthetic data can solve the problem that I told you at the start. Use your anonymized data. Use synthetic data to copy the anonymized data and also to respect your aggregate distribution. You probably came out with very, very good data, which are not even too much of, let's say, of a liability. I say too much because one of the new things of GDPR is you are never safe. But you must know how to navigate this kind of risk. Synthetic data are also very good for checking algorithms. I don't just have faith that ends finding some. I prepare a data set with known properties and I check them algorithms are good enough to find it. What else you can do? Adding synthetic data to the real database so people cannot know that if the person they are examining is the actual person, and deleting data. I don't know if Paolo Pinto is in that data set. I found a person. Paolo Pinto can be here, cannot be here, cannot be sure. Especially deleting, as statisticians will tell you, is very powerful because you decrease the privacy risk a lot more than decreasing the power, the computational power, because statistics is based on sampling. So you reduce a little bit of sampling, even by one, big privacy gain, not big damage to data, usually. So K-anonymity is when you don't have unique records in your data set, and it's the base. It's not really enough, but it's the base, and you can use them. There are more sophisticated ways, but usually they are almost impossible to implement. You must be careful to choose how much anonymity you want. So you can perturb the series slightly or heavily, but don't think that you just anonymize the data with a click. It's not on-off. And sorry. Okay, Shannon, I just wanted to show you that there are metrics that an engineer will show you, which explain how well you're doing. And using those metrics, some solutions are worse than others. Better explore the solutions. Also, sorry, I made something to, okay. The Shannon's entropy is one of the ways to measure loss of information, so you can know mathematically how much information you are preserving in an automatic data set, do this kind of calculation. Don't go into details here. You can use differential privacy, which is a way to be sure that nobody is really giving the real last where you cannot be sure. So this is for external interrogation. Just one thing, you all know what profiling is. My advice is read well before saying I cannot use data because they need profilation. Read well WP 251. It says that in many circumstances you can use profile data, but since you don't act on the single person, you can infer global statistics. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Four minutes break, and then let's start with the next and final speaker of this session. Thanks, Paolo.
Thank you to you.
Okay, let's start again. Margherita Cera, lawyer for Rodel and Partner, derivative work and open source license in M&A operations. Welcome, the floor is yours.
Very much. It's a real pleasure to be here on the stage of the FSF Conf for the fourth time for me. It is the fourth time. I'm a lawyer, so not a programmer or a developer. And every year I try to choose a topic related to open source and free software regarding possible issues that I have met during my daily professional life. And this year, I have been involved in few merger and acquisition operation. During this kind of operation, there is a company, usually a target company, that must be bought by another company, a purchasing company that acquires maybe shares or corporate participation of this target. Usually, when the target is, for instance, a company operating in the new technology field, the acquisition has the purposes to reach the technology or the software of the target. Well, if the software or the technology of the target is released under an open source license, there are several issues and problems to be considered before the signing of the sale and purchase agreement. Let me recall some legal milestone about the software. The law defines the software as, or the computer program as a set of instructions that make the machine doing something, a result or a function. This kind of instruction, as you know better than me, are written in two different languages. The source code, which is the languages of the developer, the programmer, and the object code, which is the translation in the languages of the machine. Well, the European Union Software Directive protects the computer programs by copyright as literary works. It means that in Italy, source code are protected like a poem. It's quite strange, but it is like that. And of course, the law requires also some requirements and conditions for this kind of protection. The software should be original and should result from the author's own intellectual creation. If these two requirements are present, then the software could be protected by copyright. And copyright gives to the right owner some exclusive rights, mainly three kinds of rights. The right of reproduction of the software, the right to adapt the software, to modify, to translate, to make derivative work, and finally, the right to distribute the software. Such exclusive right could be transferred to third party or could be also licensed to third party. Well, an open source license is actually an instrument that the right holder has to transfer the right to another party, to users. Open source licenses are usually terms and conditions to use such software, which must provide the right to reproduce the software, to develop and so to modify the software, and to distribute the software on the basis that given that the source code should be, of course, open, so could be modified, enhanced, or inspected by the users. So pay attention, because an open source is not a software in public domain. In the case of the open source, the copyright owner has not waived its exclusive right. He is exercising his right, authorizing a specific use of the software and a specific right to modify the source code of the software. The open source license are more or less permissive license, depending if there is a so-called copyleft clause. The copyleft clause is a clause, a contractual clause, according to the users can develop a derivative software from a previous one, and he should release such derivative work under the same condition of the license under which the previous software was released. An example of this copyleft clause is, of course, the GPL license, where it is provided that the author of a derived work should ensure any distribution or publication of the work entirely free of charge and under the same terms of the GPL license. If the users that has developed a derivative work does not respect this kind of condition, well, he integrates an infringement of copyright. So he could be responsible as a counterfeiter. Of course, there are also more permissive licenses, like the one of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, that gives the right to use, copy, modify, merge, publish, distribute the software without any limit or without any condition. Well, before to point out the problem of the mergers and acquisition process and operation, it is important to well understand what does it mean derivative work. Derivative work is an elaboration, a modification, a new work based on a previous one. It must be expressly authorized by the author, and as I said before, all the open source license authorize the user to make derivative work from a previous software. But actually, depending on the degree of the elaboration of the software, the work could be a derivative work that should be authorized by the right holder, or it should be a very creative work that could be considered as a new work, and so not as a derivative work. You may understand the importance of this difference. If a software could be categorized as a derivative one, then it is subject to the copyleft clause and should be respect the terms of the open source license. If it could be considered as a completely new, then it could escape the copyleft clause. The problem is that it is not possible to previously determine if a derivative work is a new one because it enhances a very important creative elaboration, or if it is just a derivative work. The Italian judge has the opportunity to precise that this verification should be made case by case, depending on the personal and autonomous manner in which the author has modified the previous work. So where is the problem in M&A processes? I've said at the beginning of my speech that in a proceeding of the M&A, usually the purchasing company would reach the technology of the target. Well, during the due diligence phase, which is the period where the purchasing company should verify all the legal compliance of the target company, the purchasing company should verify what? If the software, or anyway the technology developed by the target, is released under an open source license, and should verify if this open source license contains a copyleft clause. Because in this case, some possible problem could arise in the for the possibility for the purchasing company to use such software that he is buying. And also some problem could arise in relation to the possibility to match maybe the software of the target and the software of the purchasing company. But the purchasing company should also pay attention to the eventually third-party software used by the target, because maybe the target has not developed its own software, is using the one of a third party. In this case, it is important to verify if the target is respecting, is compliant with the terms and conditions of the open source license under which the software is released. Actually, if such a target does not respect, is not compliant with such terms and conditions, and the purchasing company buy this target, then the purchasing company could be liable for infringement in your turn. So the suggestion, the recommendation for the purchasing company is always to provide in the seller purchasing agreement some specific warranties that the target is using the software in compliance with the terms and conditions of the license, and that it is not infringing any third-party rights. It is very important to provide this kind of clauses. So, in M&A operation, what it is important to ask? If the target software is an open source software and if it contains a copyleft clause. If the target is using derivative work and if it is compliant with the license of this kind of this software. And finally, some, of course, technical problem, it is important to verify if it is possible the interaction between the software of the target and the purchasing company. So pay attention to read carefully the software license agreement of the programs used by the target company. Check whether any derivative work you are buying is compliant with the licenses of the previous work, and then get a warranties from the target company that there is no copyright infringement. Actually, it is very, very important, and in my daily life, professional life, during the last year, I met a lot of situations where the target company was not compliant and the purchasing one had some trouble because of that. So, thank you very much.
We have still 2 minutes of time for Q&A. I see, I invite the speaker to remain here, so.
Well, for most projects, we are using some form of libraries and stuff. What should we do then? Because
sorry, I didn't understand. What are you using?
A library, like
okay,
like we are using a part of another project that was exactly so you merge two things. Merge a part of the source code of another company, like let's say curl, for example, and we put it in our project. And how is this linking process to be seen from a legal perspective?
Yeah. So it depends. If you had the authorization of the owner of the first project that you are using, if you have the authorization, well, you should read exactly the condition of your authorization, what you can do with such project, in which way you can use it. If you have not the authorization, well, the whole project that you are doing should be very, very creative, should be a very creative elaboration of the previous one that you are using. Or, third hypothesis, if you are using a very little part of an existing project, then if it is a very little part and the whole project is your own creation, then you can work without problem. Of course, if the project that you are using is already released under an open source license, you are authorized by default, but you have to read well the condition of the open source license.
Okay, I think you can maybe deepen this kind of aspects after.
Yeah.
After. So thanks a lot. I would like to close this track. Thanks a lot to all the speakers, all the participants. I wish you a nice stay here at SFESCON, and please also enjoy on the upper floor. There is a lot of space here that you can use. Bye.